A glimmer of faint sunlight filtered into my room, shattering the stillness of the July morning. Gazing up at the ceiling, I could feel the drapes shifting ever so slightly. I sensed a change today. All across my body I could feel it. My dad, Bruce, was already eating breakfast when I heard the clinking of silverware downstairs. When Caitlin was in charge of the kitchen in the mornings, there was a set pattern to everything. The aroma of crisping toast on the stove, steam billowing from the kettle. Time was meticulously kept for every single task. The perfectionism in Caitlin was really necessary. Her composure was required. But the kitchen wasn't the only area that needed management. Everything in this house was under her control. I heard footsteps in the hall as I rose from my bed. "Hello, Carl." In my stomach, I felt a familiar knot twist. My dad and Caitlin's marriage had been going strong for 2 years, but adjusting to Carl? That was entirely distinct. Whenever he was there, I felt out of place. The concept of residing in a shared dwelling. To this day, it defies belief. In the kitchen, we would occasionally run into each other. As we walked by one another on the stairs, our shoulders would occasionally brush. However, it had little effect. This morning, nothing felt quite right. I walked out into the hallway after opening my door. Carl watched me from his room, leaning against the doorframe. The slightly sweaty gray t-shirt he had worn during his morning workout remained on him. His eyes betrayed a subtle weariness, and his dark hair was disheveled. However, I was unnerved by something other than his weariness. His expressionless gaze was the defining feature. That expression wasn't laid back. My mind briefly wandered to yesterday night's events. Everything about our connection seemed thick. The tension, the secret looks, and the air. I roused myself from my reverie and headed for the staircase. However, his fingers lightly touched the underside of my arm as I passed him. I went completely still. That was deliberate. I suppressed a gasp. "Are you not going to have breakfast with me, Arya?" The stillness of the kitchen was broken by Caitlin's voice. "I bit my lip," I said mentally. Under his breath, Carl grinned. He remained silent. That wasn't necessary. Something changed today. After certain boundaries have been crossed, they cannot be reversed. My dad and Caitlin dropped a surprising bombshell that night over dinner. My dad put down his fork and said that we were going on a weekend getaway. He glanced over at Caitlin as if they had talked about this a dozen times before. I tightened my hold on my glass slightly. All by us in the house. Sitting across from me, Carl appeared indifferent as he idly shuffled his food around on his plate. Still, I was wiser. Caitlin interjected, "As she is the rule-maker in the family. Keeping the house tidy while we're away is my expectation of you, Arya. Trash removal should be your morning priority. Keep everything neat and tidy by wiping down the kitchen cabinets." "Sure thing." It was essential that she maintain command even when she was absent. I had other plans, though. I couldn't help but reflect on Carl. Plus, we would finally be alone and unobserved. To myself, I sent a smile. It seemed inevitable that Caitlin would hold on tight until the very end. Carl walked right by me in the kitchen as we finished eating and began to clear the table. Even though our shoulders were almost touching, he remained steadfast. It was deliberate. This was done on purpose. A long, deep breath escaped my lips. Suddenly he spoke. Low, constant, and assured. "Arya, I was the one who suggested the trip." I was almost paralyzed with fear. With his gaze fixed on me, Carl leaned against the doorway. Oh, he had known. He had been aware of my emotions the whole time. He had been going along with it. Overseeing it. Maintaining control. Up till now, though, our running has come to an end. I was startled to my very core. Thermal energy. Pressure. My feelings were a knotted jumble that I couldn't untangle. Carl cautiously made his way out of the kitchen and disappeared down the dim hallway. Totally still. Our running has come to an end. Join my channel, subscribe, and enable notifications if you enjoy admissions like this. This story will captivate you from beginning to conclusion. As Bruce and Caitlin loaded their bags into the car the following morning, I stood by the kitchen window and watched. With a final spin, my dad waved goodbye. "A few days from now we will return." Despite her cool demeanor, Caitlin shot me a critical glance. "The house must not be overlooked, Arya." Not me. However, it was not like she had imagined. Finally, the door closed on them. We found ourselves suddenly on our own. An old pair of shorts and a tank top with thin straps were the first things I put on. Following Caitlin's advice, I decided to get the house in order. However, I wasn't thinking about the house. It belonged to Carl. After spritzing the coffee table with a cleaner with a lavender aroma, I began to wipe it down. The invigorating aroma permeated the room, yet it failed to soothe me. My next move is a change in the background. Being there, I was aware even before I turned around. "Hello, Carl." He observed me from the doorway. Wearing a form-fitting tank top and gray sweatpants, he slouched with his hips lowered. It seemed as though he had just completed his workout. As his chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths, a hint of perspiration shimmered on his skin. My voice became parched. "According to him, you lost something." "Excuse me?" Looking down, I noticed the fabric on the floor and scowled. It had slipped my fingers and I hadn't even noticed. Carl advanced toward her. It was dangerously near. I tried to retreat, but my legs just wouldn't budge. My lower legs were brushing against the coffee table's edge. Nowhere would take me. Down on one knee, he reached for the washcloth. But he never got back on his feet. He was far too near to my face. "You seem anxious." His voice was gentle, yet it betrayed a mischievous side. My shaky hand betrayed my words as I hurriedly claimed otherwise. Carl's attention shifted to the spot on my shoulder where the strap of my tank top had fallen just a little. He maintained eye contact. "Arya." His speech was almost inaudible. It was sufficient for him to merely mention my name. I realized it at that moment. In my mind he seemed indifferent. But I was completely mistaken. It was me who was racing. Carl left the following morning without saying a thing. Behind him the door slammed and suddenly the home seemed deserted. I was completely unaware of his return plans. On occasions like this, he would isolate himself, pretending the outside world didn't exist. However, I sensed a change in vibe this time around. His quiet was significant. It was all a mystery to me. Time flew by, but I remained completely distracted. My phone started to ring in the late afternoon. "Hello, Carl. My mom, Caitlin, is the subject of my story tonight. Additionally, I would want to share some experiences with you." I stood there, my gaze fixed on the screen. "Come along and try some new things with me." I don't understand what that means. As soon as I began to attempt to comprehend it, everything fell into place. He was always like way because of that. All this time he had been suppressing something concerning his mom. A monumental event. But the part where you get to share in the adventure with me? The riddle had been solved. Again my phone rang before I could think about it. "I am Caitlin." I responded while rolling my eyes. "Arya, make sure you remember to plan dinner. When Carl gets home, make sure the dinner is ready." Her voice was as crisp as ever, packed with directives. Very well. Dinner would be on me. Although that wouldn't work for her. With him. His alone. Later that night, I made an honest attempt to cook supper for the first time in a very long time. I crafted the items that Carl enjoyed. Within me, a peculiar combination of anxiety and anticipation was building. Suddenly, the front door swung open, interrupting my delicate table setting. Carl inched his way inside. The man was holding a bottle of vino. He stared straight into my eyes. Entering the room at a leisurely pace, he strode to the table and placed the bottle on it. A transformation was imminent. He said that it smelled nice. I felt shivers run down my spine at the slight rasp in his voice. "And you brought wine," I exclaimed, attempting to break the awkward silence. He said that we will be discussing some topics tonight. A seat at the table was ours. The actual discussion had only just begun, albeit dinner had already begun. As Carl frothed his glass, his gaze lingered on the wine's rich crimson hue. Then he gave me the silent treatment. He claimed he was the only one in the know about the secret. My words fail me when I try to convey how draining that is, Arya. I'm telling you this because of that. Since you are important to me. I felt my heart racing. Carl paused, looked directly into my eyes, and uttered the words. Caitlin had an affair with my dad. Bruce included. The hands of time were frozen. Carl carried on. It was a moneymaker for her. My father, our family, and our entire history were all sold by her. Even Bruce was aware of it. The world was his oyster. And he wed her nevertheless. My entire body trembled. It was very unexpected of me. That's why, Carl remarked, he has been tormented by remaining in this place. Even while his voice remained steady, the gravity of his situation was evident. Should I have stayed, I would have. Still, I lingered. Due to your actions. My whole world crumbled before my eyes. That must be why we stopped running, right? Our gazes met. Everything was revealed. However, when is tomorrow? Involved more than simply confidential information. The dialogue had taken place. Unfortunately, we remained. Still. Something was in the air among the half-eaten food and empty wine glasses. A void stress. A peculiar sense of alleviation. As if nothing could be concealed any longer. We found ourselves in the living room at some point, completely oblivious to our surroundings. Soft shadows were produced on the walls by the low lighting as the wine bottle rested on the coffee table. Carl relaxed on the couch, his arms draped over his head. The intensity in his eyes remained unchanged. Unconcerned, I sat with my knees pulled up to my chest and watched him. For how long has this been our routine? I had no idea. However, I became aware of how at ease I felt in his presence for the very first time. Adoring Carl in solitude. It was totally different. Understood, Carl leaned in ever so slightly. For quite some time I paid no attention to you. Sucking hard, I choked. Excuse me? With a gentle but steady tone, Carl continued. For the simple reason that I've always imagined leaving this house in a fit of rage. I noticed your expression, Arya. What you felt was real to me. But I had no intention of remaining. I choose to remain idle. He stared straight into my eyes. I knew I wasn't going anywhere though on that day. My move was made. That is why I insinuated the notion of the vacation to my parents. My entire body was suddenly sweltering. With this knowledge, I was totally taken aback when I realized he had observed me the whole time. While his thumb lightly touched my cheek, Carl carefully raised his hand. I breathed heavily as soon as his flesh contacted mine. A lot of things were lost on me, he muttered. One of a kind, Arya. I will not leave this house without you by my side. My thoughts raced. Such language. You are appealing to me. I was taken aback. Slamming against my ribs was my heart. With an even quieter voice, Carl leaned in. The human form. Charming you. When you walk. He glanced briefly at me. To put it simply, you're timid. But it's so incredibly good. In an effort to feel more secure, I crossed my arms across my lap and balled my fists. However, I had the sensation that my whole body was on fire. Carl grinned. His signature self-assured grin that borders on carefree. However, things were different this time. He gently wrapped his hand around my neck, drawing me closer. All ideas vanished. His breath slipped past my lips at last. Following that, he planted a passionate kiss on my lips. When Carl's lips touched mine, I felt a crushing loss. I was afraid my heart might explode from the rapid pounding it was doing. Tension that has persisted for years. Snatched looks. The unspoken details. Buried emotions. It was all released. His kiss was tentative at first, as if he were just getting a feel for me. But after that it got worse. Amped up. As Carl ran his fingers down my back, they slipped from my neck. I felt a chill go up my spine the moment his bare fingertips contacted mine. Warm and possessive, his touch was overwhelming. He drew me nearer. I felt a physical reaction throughout my body as his chest touched mine. His aroma wafted over me. Make it spotless. Typical manly. Balancing sensation. Beyond that, I was aware. This was only the first stage. I put my palm on his chest without meaning to. Experiencing the same rapid heartbeat as I am experiencing. Everything became tangible. In that electric silence, we became entirely disoriented. An electric current seems to be coursing through the air between us. After that, Carl gradually retreated. My lips were still tingling from his touch, and my vision was foggy. He gazed at me intently for an extended period. It was as if he were attempting to secure this memory in his mind forever. Suddenly he spoke. Deep. Quite low. Not just a whisper. Oh, Arya, I see. This has always been on my mind. I suppressed a gasp. Did you honestly believe I paid no attention to you? Sucking hard, I choked. Yes. Carl arched an eyebrow. His index finger slid up my neck and delicately scraped my chin. But I disagree with you. Everything shifted for me. I took note of you. Like forever ago. I felt his hand go across my hair, his thumb delicately running along the back of my ear. Every action you took. At first glimpse, you believed no one noticed every tiny grin you put on. Observation was my witness. I drew a long breath. Something was wrong with my body. In addition, guess what? He had smoothed off his rough edges and his voice had become gentler. There must have been 100 occasions when I had to stop myself. It was that. Suddenly my fingers began to wiggle, flowing from his front to the nape of his neck. As I touched him, I could feel his muscles tensing up. My heart skipped a beat. It was only a game. However, we were both set on losing. Once again, Carl drew near. There was a delicate touch when his lips met mine. This time, though, things were different. Less hungry, more assured. His hair became entangled in one of my hands. With a firm grasp, I drew him close. And I knew, right then, we couldn't turn around now. Once you cross a line, it's impossible to get back. I was having the time of my life. Enthusiastically, we made our way to Carl's room while holding hands. Carl also saw this as a great chance to get some alone time in a spacious double bed. We stripped down to our underwear. I was staring at our belongings on the floor while we lay side by side. We were both quite excited, and it seemed like the quiet before the storm. After a few periods of sitting up, Carl met my gaze. His movements were deliberate. Afterwards, things went swimmingly under the dimly lit chamber, which was a combination of the street lamp and the night lamp. Something was stirring within me. Carl made me feel like I belonged there. This has never occurred before. Having a sense of belonging to a certain person. I was thrilled and overjoyed. Further, Carl continued. Very deep and passionate discussions were taking place at a leisurely pace. In little time at all, I began to shut my eyes and give Carl a firm squeeze on the back. Everything had lost its significance for me. I will always be with you, Carl promised. There was an effect on my flesh and bones. With a shiver, I drew inward. A tremendous sense of relief and joy washed over me. I remained mute, totally out of breath, crying out in pain. I wish Carl would just thank me. The same number of times. I had already closed my eyes and was clutching the covers tightly when that happened. Once again, I felt like I was about to pass out. Tell me what happened. What gives Carl his charm, good looks, and loveliness? My only words were, please, please don't hold back, as I met Carl's gaze. Carl soon started making a ruckus, and then he released it. It was invaluable to feel Carl's kindness radiate through me. After 2 long years of love, my soulmate had arrived. In my company, he loved me equally too. Everything that transpired that night was predetermined. We nodded off side by side. Gentle light illuminated the room as I awoke in the morning. The bed had no one on it. While I listened, I lay there for a short while. The sound of trickling water then reached my ears through the slightly ajar door. Carl had hopped into the shower. Smiling, I looked about. I retrieved his shirt and proceeded to the kitchen downstairs. There was still a palpable stillness in the home, but my thoughts were racing back to last night. It held true. The whole amount. I got the morning meal started while propped up on the counter. In the kitchen, I heard approaching footsteps as I turned to face away. A knot of anticipation formed in my belly. Carl entered the room while stroking his damp hair with his fingers. The aroma of new soap blended with his own, and his black t-shirt clung ever so slightly to his body. Clean, inviting, and entrancing. He stared straight into my eyes. Last night, he grinned as he began, paused, then continued. Was absolutely mind-blowing. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't help but smile. Affirmative, I murmured. Indeed it was. Carl advanced toward her. My right hand was on the table and my left hand was on my waist as I spoke to Arya. I want to whisk you away from this place, but we can't just up and leave the house like that. Sucking hard, I choked. The amount of time that had been in my dreams was completely unknown to me. The start of something genuine, not a getaway. Do not be hurried, he said again. Let's do this at our own pace. Meeting his eyes, I raised my head. Oh my goodness, he was almost there. He assured us that our parents will be returning tonight. Say something casual about how you already have plans for tomorrow night. I would like to take you on a journey. I was taken aback. In what location? Carl breathed sweetly on my lips as he leaned in ever so slightly. It's unexpected. He paused as he began to withdraw. He looked closely at my face. Before anything else, though, as a precaution, I held firmly onto the edge of the countertop. Carl stood too near. An excess of it. He watched my reaction with a little tilt of his head. Prior to forming any thoughts, my entire body responded. His voice became hardly audible. Prior to the return of all parties. Once again. His breath was so hot it made my blood boil. My eyes were shut. Carl continued to draw me closer. This is just the beginning. More is available. Things are progressing at a faster rate than before. Keep an eye out for more updates. You must have been deeply moved by this narrative if you have read this far. You will not want to miss a single word of what I have to say. Please consider subscribing, enabling notifications, and leaving a comment.